moderator.
Teenage and depression, they just don't go together, right?
I was around 16 years old. Day after day, I would wake up feeling shattered.
I think one of my closest friends struggled with mental health. I think she was just 12 or 13.
It took me more than 6 months of suffering, 3 or 4 suicidal attempts. And many notices from university of absence to convince my parents that I need medical attention.
A lot of my friends have considered or have actually self-harmed.
In my circle of friends, I've encountered a lot of cases of depression and anxiety.
Do not really understand what depression is. They think that you have to be of a certain age to be depressed.
Bullying would be one of the biggest reasons for depression. Body shaming, people making fun of people for their sexuality.
There's this need to please on social media, being very conscious of what you're posting, wanting to edit every picture.
Be it in family or in school, people are unconsciously pressure boys to be a certain way. First would definitely be family issues. My parents, they didn't handle their divorce as well as they should have, and I feel like that's the case with a lot of people, and they involve their child too much, way more than they should.
I think bullying is a big one. A lot of people still feel like they can't confide in their parents.
There's a big divide between people of other sexualities and people who are considered to be conventional.
Everything is so competitive. Anything below 99.99% feels like a failure.
Body is a very big one. Skinny is a constant one. Then there's snatched, which is having a really small waist.
Domestic violence obviously has to be on that list, because once a child sees that, it traumatizes them for the rest of their lives.
It's not just sadness, but it's prolonged sadness.
Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, the one which I grew up in, there aren't enough examples how to be around such a person and how to extend a helping hand to such a person.
One thing I've realized is the importance of therapy, but even before that, the importance of clear and honest conversations. When we are going through a tough phase mentally, we know what we need to do. We know how we can get out of it. It's just that we can't do it.
It was always a hush-hush topic. Even at home, it was always a hush-hush topic. It's a very tricky, murky battle to fight, but it starts with baby steps. And the first being acknowledging that it might just exist and it's not such a bad thing.
To an extent, social media should be age restricted. 8-year-olds shouldn't be exposed to the same things a 16-year-old would be allowed to be exposed to.
If someone is depressed, their loved one should just be with them. Whenever mom has panic attacks, I'm just always with her. So, and then I guess that calms it down. I guess it was the divorce between her and dad which triggered it.
In those moments when men do need help, it's not always given, because most people feel like you shouldn't need it.
Yeah, in the scope of our school, there's a very set stereotype of who will be popular and which girls are pretty, and because of that, how well liked they are.
I think a lot of the times it's just seen as attention seeking. Awareness doesn't always mean understanding.
Depression is just so commonplace. It's an irony how it's not there in everyday conversation as it should be.
Well, to take it from here, I'd like to invite our session's moderator, Shoma Chaudhary, Consulting Editor, India Today Group.
Good morning. Continuing a tradition that India Today started 2-3 years ago of spotlighting a very, very important issue in our society, which is teenage mental health. It's not talked about enough. And we're really hoping that these sessions will draw more and more attention to this. You saw this little film, it gives a sense of the echo chamber of how widespread this is. There were some statistics there, and I'll just share one more before I call the panelists on stage, which is that in India, and this is all underreporting, there are about 200 million people who suffer from active depression, and only about 30% are seeking help. And to show that this is really something that's ever escalating, in America, we've just, some statistics say that 60% of young girls in America, 3 out of 5 are so persistently sad that they have fallen out of normal activities. So that's really like canaries, telling us what's wrong with our society. And to discuss that, to draw attention, we have a really, poignant, powerful panel today. And I'd like to first call on stage Pranavi Khandekar. She's 22 years old. Pranavi, please give her a warm welcome. Pranavi is 22 years old. She's studying psychology at Ambedkar University. And Pranavi is somebody who suffered from depression from the time she was 9 to, she's still coping, healing. She's someone who's self-harmed, who's tried to commit suicide, has OD'd, and she's here to tell us, what really happened with her and what was her state of mind during those years. I'd next like to call on stage Abha Adams, who is a very, very respected, well-known educator in India. She has been the director of Shri Ram Step by Step and has worked with children for more than 30 years. She's written a book called Parenting in the Age of Anxiety. So please give a warm welcome to Abha. And now we have Nupur Dhingra, who's a psychotherapist and psychologist, works with her consultancy practice is called Family Tree, and she works a lot with young children and families, so has great insight into what's going on. And next I'd like to call Shudipto Patra, who is a parent, he's a professional in his own right, a media person, but again, who both his sons have suffered from acute depression, the elder son more so, is someone, again, who's self-harmed, tried to commit suicide, and is now, in the process of transitioning to a new gender. And Shudipto is here to share with us, from a parent's perspective, how to deal with children who are wounded in any way. So thank you very much for joining us. Pranavi, I wanted to start with you, and thank you so much for trusting us with your story. As I shared with the audience already, that, at age 9, you discovered that you're adopted, and that seemed to have triggered a spiral in you, and then it played out over many years. Can you share with us your state of mind during that time? What does depression really feel like?
Okay, so I felt tired and scared at the same time. It was feeling so much and nothing at all at once. Sometimes I was just feeling numb. I would have sleepless nights. I'd just toss and turn around the bed, not being able to sleep. But there were also times I would sleep 2, 3, like the entire day, for like a couple of weeks. But if it was basically to escape the reality. That's what I feel. And it felt as if I'm walking on a thin rope, trying to balance myself while carrying heavy rocks. And I was scared. What if I fall? What if I crash? I felt as if I had millions of tangled wires inside my head. It was so messy and it was so disturbing. I wanted to untangle them, like each one of them, but then there were just too many, so I just gave up even before I could start. It was frustrating. I felt choked, I felt suffocated, and the pain was too much inside.
So, Pranavi, you shared with me earlier that your mother was quite a supportive person, and yet you were self-harming, and this is something that bewilders a lot of people. That, can you share with us, what was the reason that you would, cut yourself? You're already in so much pain. Why were you then further cutting yourself?
Okay, so I was in so much pain within, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Sometimes my body would feel numb. I didn't know what to do. Sometimes I needed to feel the pain, so I would keep checking, okay, am I still working? Is my body still working? Am I okay? What's happening? I was scared. And sometimes it would be because I was just scared, and I felt that was the only time I was seen, not by just others, but by my own self. It felt more real, you know, like agar kisi ko chot lagti hai, so they're like, oh, isko lag gayi hai, isko, like he's in pain, like they can see, they acknowledge it. So when I would self-harm, I could acknowledge my inner pain as well. Like it's that much that it's led to all of this. So I mean, that was how it.
So it was literally like giving vocabulary to what was inside.
Exactly,
To make
yes.
it visible. You know, I'm going to come back to you to talk to us about what helped you heal, but I just wanted to share with the audience that in addition to finding out about her adoption, there were other triggers for Pranavi, which was that she was fat shamed. You said you were about 90 kilos,
kgs, yeah.
and she was fat shamed. People remarked about her color, her peers. She shifted schools, you know, teachers, parents. There was a lot of stuff going on for her, and I wanted to help us untangle that. But Abha, here's where I want to come to you. You know, you've been working for 30 years and more possibly with students and children. What is going wrong, Abha? And you know, there's always been generation gaps, stuff that we've heard about, parent-child conflicts. But in the last 10 years, what has escalated so much that we're seeing this phenomenon, you know, this epidemic of teenage depression?
I think it's been there for the last 20 years and we didn't realize the early starts. But I believe the last 10 years has really shown the impact of the kind of accelerated change that our society is going through. Dr. Shailja Sen, when I spoke to her, said something very interesting. And she said, children are the canaries of our times. If children are broken, then society is broken. And looking at it from that perspective, I think we've fractured ourselves in many ways. We've given in to rampant consumerism. We have the commercialization of practically every aspect of our lives, whether it's giving birth to babies or preschool, whatever it is. The digitalization and that takeover has particularly, when you add that to the mix, added to this sense of I'm not perfect. There is a photoshopped mirage of perfection that our parents and our young are looking at, which gives them that this is how you need to be. You need to have a glistening skin, you need to be tall, you need to be skinny, you need to have straight hair, you need to be fair. And what's more, you need to have a happy, happy life. Happy holidays. But life's not like that. Life isn't all happiness. And as parents, if we, and I'm afraid that's what we have done, become aspirational for that perfect, the myth of happy families and perfection, that my children are going to succeed, and you define that success mantra. You don't look at your child and see what is the child's own particular yearning, passion, unique ability or trait. And it's happening with schools as well. But you define the success mantra, which is great marks. You want to intervene?
No, I just wanted to pull the others in because... So,
okay, absolutely, absolutely.
So, you know, Nupur, before I come to Shudipto, you're seeing the really injured end of the spectrum of hurting children. So give us some insight that when you're dealing with parents and with children who've actually finally come to you for help, dive deeper also from what Abha is saying, which is a societal level, what's going on. You know?
One of the first things that we get to see in our practice is how young people really struggle with being taken seriously. To have their distress really acknowledged and taken seriously by school, family, and a bit like the video that you showed just now, where the words that the young people are saying are about their distress, but then you listen to the music, and the music is all very happy, happy.
Yeah,
and
I wanted that disjunction to show.
And that is the disjunct about the facade that has to be on the outside and the internal experience. Whether it's family or schools or institutions, we don't really know what to do with distress. And there is a wish, a fantasy that we can medicalize it and that a pill will help us to make us feel better. That's not how it works.
So what works? If you were to give us just one lever that everyone should have, what would that be?
I'm going to actually connect to what Pranavi just said, which was to acknowledge that it's there. I'd say over 50% of the work we do day in and day out in our consulting rooms is listen. We listen to what the young people are saying. We zip our mouths, our opinions, which we have. We're not neutral parties. We come from our own history and prejudices even. And we were adolescents once, etc. But we listen.
So I'm going to come back to both you and Abha. You've mentioned listening, and Abha also has an idea of the kind of parenting that over all these years she feels that one really needs to do. I'm going to come back to both of you. Shudipta, I wanted to pull you in here that you've been a parent that's now seen both your children go through a journey of suffering. What has your experience been? Did you start from a position of blindness and bewilderment, and through this arc, where have you reached, which makes you a better support system for your children?
Okay, before I answer that, may I pull the audience in? How many people have, within their first line of family, experienced mental health issues? Can I show of hands? So that's sort of less than 30%. We have an audience which still needs to get sensitized, maybe. Mental health doesn't come knocking at your door. It will not say that I'm here. How to be sensitive and be aware is an ongoing process. Now, that's where I'm here primarily to share with you some of the things that, with the benefit of hindsight, we can say that might be done better. One of the first things that I would like to say is to allow children to remain children. How do we do that? It's such a simple thing to say, but it's a complex thing to live. Do you give them aspirations? Well, you do, but don't pin the future on them. Now that's complicating matters. Do you say that, tomorrow you will have a career and go and score? We saw the video, some 99%, etc. people are saying. Maybe it's not a good idea. If your child is willing to take that, go ahead and do it. But if your child is not willing, so listen. Also listen to what the child is not saying. I think that's something that we have learned the hard way. You have to be able to listen to what the child is not saying as well. Very often, the child is not saying what the issue is. And that becomes more important than what the child is saying, because the child might be under pressure from you, from teachers, from peer group, from society, from
Shudipta, here I just wanted to, again, for the audience to really understand this, maybe you could share that incident when Ambuj, who's now transitioning into Anjalika, but when he had ADHD, you didn't really understand, and he was sent off to military school. And what happened over there as a parent, I think that will really help the audience understand.
So one of the things that, it's an incident, let me try and narrate it as briefly as possible. It's not as if ADHD or ADHD children do not go to the military. So those are not linked. However, they cannot be trained into the military till they are ready to know what military demands. So that's where we made the mistake. The call was still ours. Went to a military school at an age when the call was still for the parent to take, not the child to take. So we take responsibility, we don't blame ourselves. Now that's the other important thing that the parents have to keep in mind. Take responsibility, take charge, do what needs to be done, but don't blame yourself, because blaming yourself is no good. It's useless. So he went there and they have to do all kinds of things. They have to play hockey, and he would say that, I can't connect the ball. He would narrate the story and come back during vacations and say that, if I swing the stick, either I pull some mud out of the ground or I am not able to connect to the ball. Obviously, later we figured out he had a condition called sensory integration difficulty. Most of you might have seen Tare Zameen Par, where a child learns to pick up how the ball is coming, how to connect, etc. Now, some children will not learn it.
I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump in only because, we're going to run out of time and I really want to come back to everyone.
Please go ahead.
So if I may just say it in a synopsis that, so basically Ambuj then was not suited for military school because it was so disciplinary. And I chatted with Ambuj earlier where he said it was horrible because if he wasn't able to do something, his entire batch was punished for it,
That's right.
So in addition, he had all that burden put on him and he really cracked at that point. That was the first time he really harmed himself.
So fragile shoulders should not be burdened with more weight till they are ready to take more weight.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I'm rushing you all. It's just that, these are big issues and we're sort of rushing this. But Pranavi, help us understand that, you went through this entire process and today you're sitting here facing an entire audience. For someone who couldn't face yourself, what was it that helped you heal?
I think therapy and medication combined helped me be the person I am today, helped me learn, helped me grow, helped me understand myself. Therapy taught me how to create space in my body to deal with and handle difficult feelings and emotions. It taught me how to create a tap in that overflowing patila of my anxiety. It taught me how to deal with my anxiety. So like I was told about an anxiety meter. So 1 was the lowest, 10 was a crash. So I was able to recognize, I was slowly becoming aware of where I was. And if I would ask for help immediately when I would see myself that if I was at 3. So I think that helped me. And yeah, I have written something.
Yeah, you want to share that?
Yes.
Very, very quickly. And also, you were saying that very often now you dialogue with it's not that there's no more anxiety in you, but you've learned a way of talking to yourself.
Yes, exactly.
You want to share that?
Yeah, I would love to, yeah. So each time I get anxious or, I feel angry or throw a tantrum with my mom, for example, and I feel horrible about it. So I talk to myself. I talk to the inner child in myself. I tell it that I know that you're scared. I know that you're fearful, but it's okay. I'm here too now. I'm 22 years old. I can take charge. I don't want to abandon you. No, I don't want to. We can do collaborative work. I know you care for me and I respect and value you. You are very valid. So I would talk to it and I would really feel better. And I was able to activate my adult self.
Right.
Yeah.
Pranavi, I'm going to come back to you to read that because, I haven't finished just plumbing all of them. Abhay, may I come back to you that, when we were chatting earlier, you zeroed in on 2 very important things that all society needs to do, which is to communicate and connect better, Those are big words, but is there any ingredients to that we can all take away? Differing temperaments, but is there some practice we can follow?
Communication and connection at both the level at the home and the school. And I've seen that there's a breakdown in both. At the basis of communication is the fundamental need to accept. All of us want to be accepted for who we are and valued for what we bring, and to be respected. If, as a parent, I do not connect with my child with that acceptance of I see you, I hear you, I respect you, and I accept you for who you are, then that connection doesn't happen, and then communication gets worse. I owe this understanding to Gloria, who is here with us this afternoon, and who clarified that as adults, as parents and educators, when we feel insecure and inadequate, we go to our go-to place, which is controlling behavior. We want to control the child in the class. We want to control the child at home. And of course, that's a collision course. So creating safe spaces at home, early on, very early on, and at school, which is sorely lacking, the space for conversation is shrinking, leave alone a safe space. But the child knows that she has love, she has security, she has understanding, she will not be judged, she will not be belittled, and she will be accepted where she can speak her mind to the parent and to the teacher. And that's critical. Now, it's hard because as a society, we are not used to speaking about these things. And so I think that's where training needs to begin.
Right. So again, Nupur, I'm so sorry. I'm feeling terribly this thing because we have such short time. Help us understand, you spoke about, again, this compliance, and you've spoken about listening even as a therapist, but there's a big parent community here that when you're dealing with these injured children, is there any pattern that you're seeing, which is creating that breakdown, and which you feel, again, that there can be some playbook that parents can take away?
So there's three things I want to say. One is in response to Pranavi's thing about anxiety still coming up. All of us on this stage right now are anxious about different things. Anxiety is something that everybody in this room experiences. Each of your smartphones is used as anesthesia against our anxiety when it rises. So anxiety is not something that's going to go away. It's a physiological experience. So let's not make it into something that is wrong. It's about levels of anxiety, connected to which the whole point about it needing spaces of safety. See, learning can only take place when the nervous system is in a place of safety. If your child in the home or in a school or in any scenario is scared, the nervous system is overwhelmed, and fear does not become a conducive place for the nervous system to take in new information. So learning cannot take place in fear. All of you are in powerful positions in your own respective places of work. You would know what it's like to have been facing a senior who's not listening. You would know what it's like now to have a subordinate you are being now in the position where you're trying to make them listen.
No, but I just wanted to cut in here because there's one important thing. So you've made this point about the anxiety that a lot of parents that I've spoken to and that even young children are confused about what's that line where you just tell someone to buck up and carry on, or when you really take it seriously enough to give it attention or therapy. Parents often can't recognize that. Is there anything that you can give?
Yes. And it's actually a specialist thing to be able to recognize when anxiety is over threshold, and where you cannot tell them to just get on with it. But as a rule of thumb, I'd say if you're talking to teenagers or young people, avoid the word should, because then you've lost your audience. And the second one is do not tell them to get on with it, because that's very dismissive, and then you've lost your audience again.
But is there anything, how do they know when you have to go to a therapist? Like, this is happening at home. How do you know that you need to go to a therapist?
So our bottom line is take all distress seriously. After that, we can then talk about how much, when, where, and how.
Okay.
But you have to take distress seriously, because only then are they going to take you seriously.
Right. You were sharing with me earlier, there are physiological symptoms, that when being sad to just not being functional is a good example of when you need to go to a doctor, But Shudipta, I'm going to have to rush you on this, that as a parent, when your child was cutting, ODing, you had a certain response to it, which you said has helped you get through it. Would you share that in a line?
So what we did was we tried to tackle the job at hand, which was to take care of the child. We stood by the child. We didn't panic ourselves. That's one of the first things that usually we have heard other instances from other parents do. We were lucky enough not to do it. But what we fell short of is continue to show affection during that period of distress. So we needed to solve the immediate crisis when on a holiday we had a situation at home where medical aid was needed and no doctor was available. So we did what was necessary, including an intramuscular injection, tetanus, and so on, with guidance from the doctor. But what we could have done was to show more affection, that we understand. That's something that is always in short supply when children have mental health challenges. Yeah.
I'm so sorry, and I'm feeling very rude to not let all of you read what you had planned to read to the audience, but I'd just like to share with you that all of them have written books, and the books are available outside on Amazon at Bahari Sons. I'm going to have to leave it here. I'm sorry Shudipta's not even able to speak about the gender dysmorphia, transitioning to a new gender, all very bewildering experiences for parents, but this is just the tip, like a torchlight. And thank you very, very much, all of you, for sharing your time and experiences with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And like Shoma pointed out, all their books are at the Roshanara Hall. You can have a chat with them if you wish to. Get your copies signed. They're right here, and they'll see you at the Roshanara Hall. But I request all of you to stay on stage for just about a minute as I call upon Mr. Ranuj Kohli from Hitachi to come up on stage and present a small token of our appreciation to our panelists. Ladies